I'm going to begin by typing in headers in the top row. So we've got names for employees, the hourly rate at which they're paid, the hours that they've worked that week, the gross pay, the tax that they pay, and the net pay. I'm going to type in some data, so I'm just making up some names for the employees. Next, we're going to type in the hourly rate. So I'll begin with $10, so 10.00. And you may notice that the figures remove the figures after the decimal point, and for $12.50, which is 12.5. We'll look at that a little bit later, how we can change that, how we can format this column so that it actually shows up the way we'd like it to be. Hours is simple. We just type in the number of hours that they've worked that week, and there's usually not decimal points for the hours, although there can be, and we can add in a decimal point for 35.5. I'm now going to add in a totals, so I'm going to go to a cell A6. And one way to navigate to a cell is to either just click on it directly, or in the name box up here, if we type in A6 and then press enter, it automatically goes to that cell. And I can just type in totals, and the totals that I want to bring up are the totals for hours, so all of the hours that everybody's worked. So again, I can either directly click on it or type in C6. This time I'm going to directly click on C6. The easiest way to make a calculation based on just an addition of a number of cells is to use one of the built-in functions in Excel, and you can find that over in the near the auto sum on the right hand side of the menu bar. If we just click on auto sum, it makes an assumption of what we actually want to calculate. It usually guesses that it's either the column or the row that's adjacent to the cell that has the formula. In this case, we've got a marquee, or a marching ant as it's known, which is the little kind of shimmering line that's around the cells from C2 until C5. We can see in the formula bar that we have equal sign and then sum, which is an addition of all the values in the cells. We have the opening and closing brackets containing C2 colon C5. That's telling us that it's going to make an addition on every value between C2 and C5. So that's C2, C3, C4, and C5. And that is reflected on the marching ants cells here. We could actually change this by clicking on different cells or by dragging the corners to make changes if Excel's guess is incorrect. In this case, it is correct, and very often that Excel does guess correctly. We can either press enter, or we can just click on the check mark. And as you can see, when I roll over onto the check mark, it says enter. It does the same job as pressing the enter key. I'm just going to click on the check mark. So you can now see the marching ants have gone, and we've got a solid line around 140.5, which is the sum of the four figures in the column above here. So we still have C6 selected, and we can see the actual formula in the formula bar. So the formula is different from the value. So in this case, we're able to see both one in the formula bar and one in the cell. If I now click in the formula bar, it's giving me some visual feedback about what that formula is doing. You might notice that C2 colon C5 is now highlighted in blue. That is reflected by the cells here, which have a blue border. So the blue of the formula bar is reflected in the cells with the blue border. It's color coding, so to give you more information about what's happening. I'll just click on the check mark again to say yes, that's what I want to do. I don't want to make any changes or any edits. What we're going to do now is calculate the gross. So that's going to be the the rate per hour multiplied by the number of hours worked. So for example, in row 2 for John, we will be multiplying what's in B2, which is 10, by what's in C2, which is 35. So we're expecting the gross, which will be in D2, to be 350. What I'm going to do is again use the auto sum, but I'm going to make an edit to it. So sometimes you can use the inbuilt functions and then make some changes, and it gives you a little bit of a head start and perhaps reminds you of some of the layout and syntax of how the formulas are constructed. So I'm going to click on D2, so I'm going to tell Excel where I want the formula to be. I'm going to click on auto sum, and you can see it's guessed correctly which cells I want to calculate, B2 and C2, because they're adjacent, so it's seeing figures in there or numbers, and it thinks I want to make a calculation on those. And I do want to make a calculation on those, but I want to multiply them rather than add them. So we're going to look up at our formula bar, and we can see we have B2 colon C2. What I want to do is replace the colon, so I'm just going to highlight the colon, and I'm going to replace that with the multiplication symbol, which in computing is usually the asterisk, and you can find the asterisk above the 8. So I'm going to press Shift and 8, and we now get the asterisk sign. Something to note now is that the B2 is in blue and C2 is in green in the formula bar, and in the cells B2 is bordered by a blue box and C2 is bordered by a green box. So it's again giving us color information about what we're attempting to do. That's correct, so I'm going to just click on the checkbox. Because I want to do a calculation for the gross on all of the employees, so that's for rows 3, 4, and 5, as well as 2, I can just copy and paste the calculation or the formula that I've already done for row 2. The way to do that is to select the cell that you want to use as your kind of template that you want to copy, and I've already got D2 selected. And again, we can tell which cell is selected because of the dark border around it, and also because in the name box up here it says D2, and the D column is kind of highlighted and the 2 row is highlighted. But you'll notice in the border that there's a small black box in the bottom right corner, and at the moment my cursor is like a large white cross. If I move the cursor over the black box, it'll turn into a smaller, thinner black cross. That's telling me that it's ready to paste or copy and paste. I can just drag now. So I'm going to press the left key on my mouse and I'm going to drag down. And I'm now going to release. So you can now see that the values of each row in that column is filled with numbers which match up with the values in columns B and C for each row. What I'm going to do now is have a look at the formula that it's created. So I'm going to click on D3. So at the moment we've got the value in the actual cell, and up here we've got the formula. If I click in the formula bar, we now get the color coding. So we can see that the multiplication is happening on B3 and C3. Now if I click on each of these in turn, so I click on D, and then in the formula bar, I can see the calculation B4 and C4, and for row 5, I'm clicking in the formula bar, I can see it's B5 times C5. So each time that we have dragged that formula down, so we've kind of copied and pasted, but it's not like a traditional copy and pasting where it's an exact replica. It's actually interpolated what it thinks we want the values and formulas to be changed to. So each time it's moved down a row, it's changed the corresponding rows that it performs the function on.